I'd like to once again just draw attention to the efforts by the cooperators that we're relying on here in Santa Barbara County. Nobody can do this themselves. One of our key cooperators in this effort is the Forest Service, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce him, Chief Jimmy Harris.
Thanks, Mark. You guys will hear a lot of specific details from our operations chief, Anthony Stornetta, in a little bit, but I'd like to just say that the cave fire that we're currently engaged with, the last number I had reports of acres is 4,262. And the cave fire is burning under some of the toughest firefighting conditions anywhere in the world. We're at the end of the dry season, so the fuels are some of the driest that we have. There, I believe the live fuel moistures are like 55%, which is way below critical. We've experienced several offshore wind events to this point, and that has just dried the fuel bed out to the point where we're seeing the fire behavior that we saw last night. The winds that we're experiencing, these offshore winds, we've become accustomed to them in the fall. It's kind of a normal thing, but they're extreme. They pushed fire downhill last night. The firefighters were trying to get an anchor point up top and trying to protect structures down at the bottom while dealing with spot fires downhill, and then when the wind would let up, there would be a slope reversal and fire would burn back uphill towards where the guys were trying to anchor up top. So just a really hard, difficult piece of country to fight fire in, and the weather is some of the most extreme anywhere around. So it's pretty amazing. I'd just like to thank all the firefighters that are out there. They did an amazing job last night preventing loss to Santa Barbara County and the infrastructure along Highway 154. It did cross over 154 in a couple places, but they've been fairly successful at holding that line and then curtailing and getting that, what did slop over, back into where we want to keep it. So the other thing is we've had a lot of fire in Santa Barbara County, specifically on the front country over the last 15 years or so. This is one of the last slots of old vegetation, and it's something we've all talked about for years and years, like just a nightmare spot of right down the San Marcos Pass where the winds funnel. The last time it burned was 1990 in the Painted Cave Fire, and so we were all kind of ramping up as soon as we heard the start location. What we could expect was it coming down into Santa Barbara. So yeah, it's a 29-year-old fuel bed. Last night we had several night flying helicopters. You may have all seen that. Valuable asset. They did great work at getting support to those guys on the ground in those dangerous spots. And then finally, we've been through enough of these events that are cooperative relationships with Santa Barbara County, Santa Barbara City, CAL FIRE, CARP, Summerlin, Lompoc, all of the Santa Barbara County agencies and our neighbors to the south with Ventura County have come together to help us out. The incident management team, we are a unified command with Santa Barbara County, CAL FIRE, and the Forest Service. And really, I'd just like to appreciate those folks that have come together in a seamless manner and just engaged at a top-notch level. So I'm feeling good. We do have a real tough day ahead of us today, and then the weather will switch, as you'll probably hear about or you've already heard, to the rain cycle starting later tonight or tomorrow morning. So thank you. Now I'd like to introduce my partner from CAL FIRE, Scotty Jalbert.
Good morning. About 5 years ago, it was pretty typical to end fire season around November 1st. That was kind of the norm. And in the last few years, we've seen our fire season extend out. And here we are again, unfortunately, near Thanksgiving, the end of November. So with that, we've had to make some adjustments in the fire service, especially with CAL FIRE, that here we are in the end of November, and we're still at peak fire season with the brunt of the majority of our resources still staffed this time of year. And the reason for that is why we're here today. So with that, even though we do have some fire activity statewide, we were able to provide an abundance of ground and air resources to the incident. And as mentioned, we're all working very well together. Unfortunately, we've gotten really good at this, working together on these fires, especially at the end of the year. We have resources deployed all the way from Monterey to San Bernardino, and that includes not just CAL FIRE resources, but local resources and federal resources as well. Just a reminder to everyone, even though we do have some rains coming, it's not over yet. We're still looking at staffing heavily through the end of the year, preparing for additional fires, and especially when we get these wind events. So just be prepared with that. I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Battalion Chief Anthony Stornetta.
Good evening, everyone. Anthony Stornetta, day operations, also was night operations last night. Before I talk about the firefighters and some of the extraordinary work that they've done out there, I want to first recognize some of the same people that Chief Hartwig did. The community who's been through this so many times, they're so resilient. They work with us all the time. We have great relationships, and I just want to make sure that you guys all know that as well. As this community's tight, and with the fire department, the law enforcement, we're all partners in this, and we're only successful if we're partners in the end. Last night, many of the firefighters that are still out there today started at about 4:30 yesterday afternoon. They're still working. As been mentioned by Chief Harris and others, it's been quite the firefight. We've had winds moving up slope, down slope, across the slope. We've had firefighters engaging in structure defense, being pushed out and run out, and then turning around, come back, and getting right back on those structures. Again, without the effort of the community, we wouldn't be able to make that stand. You guys have created some good defensible space, some good vegetation management, which has helped make our safety a priority as well. So we appreciate you guys doing that. With the events on there, we have some dozers putting in some contingency line and some secondary control lines. We have engines still on structure defense. We have hand crews that are digging in overhead brush about 14, 16 feet high, cutting in there to some hot spots. If you guys look up there right now, it's pretty messy. It was messy all night long, and right now the same thing. We have to go in pretty far to grab that. And we have to do it safely with some good anchor points and safety zones, but we're slowly making progress on it. It was really messy last night. As I said, the wind pushed it in every direction, and we're trying to get it and keep a perimeter. Our number one priority is to get you guys, the residents, back in your houses. That's your sense of normalcy and getting you guys in. That is our priority. We don't want to hold you out any longer than we have to. We just want to make sure it's safe to do so. All night last night, as mentioned earlier as well, we had helicopters working under night vision goggles. They did some extraordinary work. They continued all night. First thing this morning, we started the fixed wing aircraft. We have very large air tankers, and some S2s up there right now. We're trying to box this thing in to give us a little bit of time to get in there safely and start putting a perimeter on this. It takes time and it takes a lot of effort, but again, we want to thank you guys for all that. And just because it's a little overcast today, just know that the relative humidities are still very low. We're in critical fire weather right now, and it was yesterday too. It may not feel like it, but last night at the top of the Camino Cielo, winds are up to 45 miles an hour. So they're up there, and it's cold up there. But they're doing their best. They're doing fine. We appreciate all your guys' help, all your support. And along with the fires, we still have to think about this rain coming in and the safety of the personnel and the community. And if we hold you out just a little bit longer, it's because we want to make sure nothing comes off that hill and that you guys are the priority. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sheriff Bill Brown from the Sheriff's Office, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how the calls were initially received and the evacuation process. As you're aware, this fire started early Monday evening. The cause is unknown. The first 911 calls were received in our combined dispatch center at 4:14 p.m. And once again, the women and the men who work in that center did a magnificent job. To give you an idea, they received a total of 268 911 calls, 21 of which were within the first minute of the event. They pushed out numerous wireless emergency announcement messages in a timely manner to notify the community as to what was happening. Our first sheriff's deputy arrived on scene at 4:23 p.m. and shortly after, coordinating with the fire authorities, determined that there was a need for evacuations, and the evacuations commenced. The fire is still uncontained at this point. There will be a likelihood that evacuations for some people are going to continue for some time. Rest assured that there will be saturation patrols by sheriff's deputies and our law enforcement mutual aid partners in the evacuated areas. The evacuated areas were expanded several times last night so that the current evacuation zone is essentially a large rectangle that is bordered by Camino Cielo to the north, On Terre to the east, Cathedral Oaks to the south, Fairview to the west. And what that means is that Highway 154, which is kind of right in the center of that rectangle, is closed until further notice. So make sure that if we're planning to use 154 to transition from North County to South County, that you take an alternative route on the freeway. The evacuations resulted in about 2,284 residences being contacted by sheriff's deputies and search and rescue personnel. Many of those people had already self-evacuated. 1,357 of the residents were not at home at the time of the evacuation notifications. 517 residents were home and indicated that they were evacuating. 324 residents indicated that they were going to stay in their homes. We were unable to reach 37, and 49 of those homes were vacant. We estimate that about 5,481 people were actually evacuated, and the bulk of that area, as I said, is likely to stay evacuated today. But I do have some good news for you, and that is that effective at noon today, the westernmost boundary of the evacuation zone is going to be dropped, or moved rather, from Fairview over to Patterson. So Patterson will be the westernmost edge of the evacuated area. The area in between Fairview and Patterson actually constitutes the largest number of homes. So we're thankful that we're able to get people back into those homes starting at noon. There's about 4,000 or so people affected by that will be able to return home. There is no power service in some of that area. It's important for people to understand that. They may be going back to a home that doesn't have power on at the moment. This was not the result of a public safety power shutoff, but rather this was a safety measure that was done at the request of the fire agencies for the protection of the firefighters. And as soon as that those power lines can be inspected and the situation is safe enough, that power will be turned back on. I'd like to thank the mutual aid law enforcement agencies that came in addition to our fire partners that came in from out of the area. We had assistance from within our county, from the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, Guadalupe, and University police departments. And we had assistance from Ventura County, from the Ventura Sheriff's Office, from the Ventura Police Department, and from the Oxnard Police Department. All of that coordinated through our California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and we appreciate that. It's been mentioned before, but I think it bears repeating. I want to just give a shout out to the pilots that flew all through the night last night with our air support unit and with some mutual aid that was provided as well. We had 2 county helicopters flying from our Joint Sheriff Fire Air Support Unit, Copter 308 and Copter 3. We were assisted in that endeavor by the Los Angeles County Fire Department with one of their Firehawk helicopters, and by the Kern County Fire Department with a Huey helicopter as well. In addition, we had the Forest Service providing a fixed-wing air attack aerial command post, if you will, throughout the evening as well. As mentioned, the rotary wing aircraft have stopped for the time being because the fixed-wing aircraft have arrived and are able to fly and are dropping water as we speak. I'd like to mention that anyone that does need shelter, who is perhaps coming into the area late and finds that their home is in an evacuation zone, there is a shelter that is available at the Goleta Valley Community Center, 5679 Hollister Road in Goleta. And if you have animals that require sheltering, you can call the animal hotline, 805-681-4332. Small animals will be accommodated at the Goleta Animal Shelter at 5473 Overpass Road. And large animals, equine and livestock, can be accommodated right here at the Earl Warren Showgrounds, 3400 Calle Real. There is a call center number, which I'll give you, 833-688-5551. Again, that's 833-688-5551. That is a number at the Emergency Operations Center that can be used to obtain information with respect to evacuation and repopulation efforts. And I'm going to turn it back over to our ringmaster here from the fire service, Captain Pacelli.
All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. I'd like to thank our speakers. We have time for some questions. We have one of our PIOs who's going to have a microphone to bring the microphone to you. We ask that you state your who your question is for so we can get the appropriate person up here to answer your question. So do we have anybody who has any questions?
For any of the fire chiefs, how many homes destroyed?
I can answer that for you, actually. We have 0 residents have been destroyed by the fire. We have reports of 1 outbuilding has been destroyed. It's a structure that is not permanent residence for anybody. No injuries. Any other questions?
Yeah, do we know how many people are being affected by these power outages?
I do not know exactly how many people are affected by any power outages right now. I could get with the SCE rep and get that information for you.
Okay, so we should just contact SCE, you think?
That would be the best way to get the best information.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Christina Favuzzi with KSBY. With the rain that's expected, how does that play into the firefight tonight and into tomorrow? Are there concerns for slides?
Well, with the rain that's coming, it's definitely going to affect our fire behavior. It's going to diminish the fire behavior, and it's going to allow us to get more of a handle on the fire activity. It will create hazards for our firefighters working in those conditions. And as far as slides go, we do have rain that's going to be falling in an area that's a fresh burn scar. We do have concerns, but with the amount of rain that's coming over the duration, we're more concerned of small little rock slides along the 154 area at this point. All right, thank you. That concludes our press conference. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
All right, and you just heard from officials on the Cave Fire update there. We want to give you some of the highlights that we saw. The first thing that they said, this was some of the toughest conditions that they've had to deal with in fighting fire. You've talked about it this whole time, and winds have been a factor.
Definitely, and that's really what they were up against, and we've been detailing that since this fire really broke out, because it was wind-driven. It continues to be, even though those winds are starting to taper off as the storm system makes its way over the area. We're talking about SLO County, of course, Santa Barbara County. We're still going to have that wind-driven factor as they continue their firefight. And we just heard, too, with the rain that we're expecting late tonight, it will help them out somewhat, but they still have a lot to get to with bringing this fire to some containment.
And with all that said, too, it crossed over on Highway 154 in several sections. This area, too, has one of the slots of the oldest vegetation when it comes to sitting there waiting for it to burn. It had not been burned since 1990. So 29 years of vegetation passed up on that. San Marcos Pass, the winds funneled it out, ramping up when they heard of the location, too, of their response because of this area of 29-year-old fuel bed. Helicopter support overnight was big. They talked a little bit about that. But it is a tough day ahead. Looking forward on the weather switch that we continue to discuss and the rain that is in our forecast.
Definitely. And just going back to when this fire first broke out, too, according to the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office, more than 200 calls came in, 911 calls, alerting authorities of what was going on. And obviously, they have about 600 personnel on the ground from the air as well, working to bring this fire to containment.
It was great defensible space that residents had put up. They were commended for their work on that. Firefighters very happy, not only for being able to make sure that no structures have been destroyed in this, no homes, that is. Only one outbuilding structure had been destroyed, but that had helped them make sure that they were safe, that the homes were safe. Still no containment. We just received word from Bill Brown that that is not contained yet. Evacuations will continue for, quote, some time. That we don't know, but effective at noon, western boundary will be moved from Fairview to Patterson. Patterson will be the westernmost edge. That's about 4,000 people affected by that. So those people will be returning to their homes. Okay. The very latest we will have ksby.com both tonight, 5, 6, 10, and 11. Please stay tuned for all those updates.